Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Reliable HVACR live stream / podcast. Came straight from work, so I see a lot of people in the chat already. Welcome everybody: Steve, Fixer 69, Jennifer, HVAC teacher. Appreciate everybody who's here. Special guest today. So I have Matt Showers, also known as the HVAC grammarian, and let me just bring him on already. Hey man, what's up?
Hey, what's going on?
Pretty good over here. Trying to keep sane, had a long day at work.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I saw in your stories, like you basically rolled in there at like 25 after to get everything set up and get going here.
I was like, man, I'll make it, right? But my start time is like 8:35. I was like, I needed those extra 5 minutes there, so it's always a little cushion that I give myself there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just like I said, I'm sure you know how podcasts work. If you want to give a little intro to the guys that are watching, everybody listening, and just tell them the field or the part of the field that you're in and what you got going on.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So I've been in the field now for about 11 years. Did a lot of residential and light commercial stuff for the past 10 years, and just recently now I'm working for Train in for the manufacturer Train, doing a lot of chiller work now, some large commercial and industrial work. So I just been there for about a month you do like startups and commissions, like some of these other guys out there. So yeah, it's kind of wild to see what I've seen so far. It's it's a whole other animal. Like I'm working with process chillers and some other stuff, and just basically it's kind of amazing to see what comes out of the factory. At times it's like, man, how in the world did this come out of the factory like that? I mean, it's just kind of crazy, but I mean, it's just like I'm quality control for quality control at this point. It's kind of crazy.
Oh, okay.
But then on top of that, like you saw, I saw like in the little intro that you were doing with me there, I do have my own podcast called Trade Therapy. And the goal of that is to have tradespeople like yourself or whomever else out there to share any kind of like mental health story that they have, whether it's been like, some kind of abuse or addiction or depression, what have you, just almost like in a sense, normalize the fact that, we're all human beings and we all have our own crap that we deal with. And to kind of shed this whole, we have to be, macho man and just tough it through and be, whatever. We don't talk about our feelings. And it's like, you know what, we need to just kind of open up and just be like, look, we're all human beings. We all deal with our own crap. So we just need to be like more human and just be more open about that. And just to say, look, this is out there. And if basically it's the kind of way for me to say, hey, if someone out there is inspired to get some help. Like, I mean, I needed help myself. I still deal with like almost like a video game kind of like screen addiction kind of thing. I mean, that's just the way it is with these smartphones. I mean, you were part of that podcast I did with Gil. I mean,
Yeah.
that was like the big thing. So, I mean, that's the thing. We all have our own crap that we're dealing with. No one is like immune to not having something that's going on in their life, that like some little thing that's out there that's not going to cause them to kind of quickly trip up and stumble. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you bring up the whole smartphone thing. I think that's a big deal nowadays, right? And I catch myself being on my phone too much, and I kind of like, I have the presence of mind to kind of catch myself, but still, like, I still don't like how much time I put into, being on social media, or like sometimes I just endlessly scroll because there's, I guess you get bored and you lose track of time, and that kind of, you can't get time back. So that kind of sucks.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got 5 kids. So, I mean, that's, there's time that I've missed with them, and it's unfortunate. I mean, especially it's mostly been my older ones that I've missed that time with, and so I can't get that back. But at this point, it's just more like, taking that, basically making the most of what time I do have. But like you're saying too, it's, with social media and everything else, it can be such a quick, easy vice. And that's why, I mean, for me, I'm only on Instagram. I would never go on TikTok. I got off Facebook years ago because whatever, for other reasons. Twitter, in my opinion, is a dumpster fire of a platform. So
Of
for me,
course,
I'm just like,
yeah.
Instagram is it, and that's all I. If I go any further, that's that right there. That's a slippery slope for me, and that's where it's for me. It's like I know my limits, and that's like where I'm like, nope, that's it.
Yeah, as far as like the whole social media thing, I have a Facebook going on, or my own Facebook. that's just to keep in touch with people because I know that's the easiest way, but I really don't use it. I kind of told myself, to stop kind of posting on there. And then Instagram is just more of an HVAC thing. There's a whole community on Instagram. Now, like when I started 2 to 3 years ago, I got a little backlash on like certain things. People would nitpick at stuff that I would post or whatever. And it's gotten a whole lot better. So the whole Instagram part, for the most part, is positive now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of good to be on there just to get, you meet people virtually, I guess, through there that you would never meet in person. People all over the nation, the world. I have people like that I talk to in Canada and other countries and stuff, and that's kind of cool.
Oh yeah, I
Uh,
mean, absolutely.
but like I said, when I started it, I did get a little bit of like the whole bullying thing and whatnot, and I tried. I guess I tried. I kept posting and I called them out a little bit, and then I had people actually messaging me that they liked that I stood up, I guess, because they had been posting bullied, and then they got to a point where they were like scared to post and stuff like that. And I'm like, it shouldn't be like that.
Oh
But
yeah.
thankfully that whole movement has come through. Everybody's just, they have everybody's back. It's all supportive. It's a great community now, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was just talking with Gary McCready about that, a little bit of that, and along with Brandy Ferentz, who is Chiller Chick,
Oh
about
yeah.
that whole thing, and with stuff that she's going on with. I mean, and it's true. It's like even like HVAC Tactical. Ben Poole talks about that same thing, where it's a mindset here, and it's really nice to see like people out there that really take pride in what they do. And yeah, there are those naysayers out there, but what cracks me up too is like a lot of those naysayers hide behind that privacy screen, and it's just like, well, you're not even willing to like make your own stuff public, so go away. Like, why should I even listen to you? And I've had some of that too, where like I've gotten some flack for some things. I'm just like, whatever. Most as far as you get a lot of these positive comments or positive feedback, and then you just get like a handful of naysayers. I'm just like, what, you naysayers, whatever, forget it.
Yeah, and even Ben with I like what he did was great with the whole award show and bringing people together because I went out there to the HR and stuff, and I was in a room and I got to talk to so many different people that take pride and stuff. Like Jeff Jadem, uh, Michael Flynn,
Oh
Mike
man, yeah.
Mayberry, all those guys. It was really cool to see them in person and get to talk to them, pick their brain a little bit, and even Ben gets, stuff for having an award show, like, how dare he and this and that. So uh, everybody gets it, but, just keep on going.
Oh yeah, and I had to laugh because just saw a post from somebody from one of one of the suppliers in this area, and they're like, look, here's for someone that took this award for sales or whatever, and I sent it over to Ben because that's the whole reason he made the tactical awards, and I'm like, look, it's one of these sales awards, and he was just laughing because I know he hates those. He just thinks they're so dumb. I'm like, yeah, you can sell all you want, but does the stuff actually work properly? Like, are you are you just like selling stuff and then just slap it in people's homes and calling it done or whatever? So yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, I think Ben is helping, bring the whole pride thing forward, where people are trying to work hard and put their best work out there. Because like you said, like the awards that we had, around the supply houses or whatnot, different companies, it's just who sells the most or who does, sales better. So not a big person on sales. I'm a repair first guy. I don't like to push sales if I don't have to. So definitely respect what Ben's doing over there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like to make. I mean, for me, at this point too. I mean, I make I make recommendations. That's what I always like to say. You make these recommendations. I mean, and
Yeah.
if it leads to somebody, then if it leads to you kind of making a sale, well, that's fine. But that's because you're making a recommendation based on, here's this evidence that you present to people and say, here's why I think you should do this, or at least consider this. And then that gives them time to at least ponder and think, and and say, you know what? Yeah. So, this person's making really good point. This, it's backed up with, with facts and evidence. It's not just saying, like I see some people here saying like extortion and whatnot. Yeah, that's just it. These people are just like, oh, you need a new system because they just come up with something on the on the fly, like, oh, you need, you have a Refreon leak, you need a new system. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I talked to some guys who do work for like a residential company, and they make good commissions and stuff. But these guys at least are honest about it. So they're like, yeah, we give them both options. So like they don't push either one, the sale or the repair. It's like, you give the customer the option to do it. And what he told me was like, you're a hack if you're not offering both. Like, yeah,
Hmm.
if you don't like to sell equipment, that's fine. But if you want to, be a good technician, you got to do both. So like, yes, it can be repaired, but should they be, considering a new unit around like 15, 20 years? Possibly, especially if there's a whole bunch of issues with it. So just give the customer the option.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the main thing, is just you got to give those people options, and I've done that in the past. Not so much now. I mean, I'm still learning kind of like how things operate, being working for a manufacturer now, and being in this heavily commercial sphere. I know that's a whole nother animal there for me. But in the past, yeah, where it was like, if it was like, look, we can repair this, absolutely, but is it going to be a worthwhile investment of your money? And I would, a lot of times I'd say, look, it's going to cost you more to get a new system, but that's going to be your best long-term investment.
Hmm. So, like you said, you have a podcast. So, if you guys listening or watching did not know, Matt has a podcast called Trade Therapy, where he goes over all of that kind of side of the trade. The whole stress, frustrations, how you deal with them, even addictions. Some people have the overcome addictions. I think you and Gil have talked about that before. You, Gary, and like you said, Chiller Chick, Brandy. I listened to that one recently, and that was a good one too. I have actually talked to her recently, and it's a shame of what she's going through, and that's kind of a whole thing. The women in the trade, they get, I don't know if it's a bad rep, but like it's a touchy subject, I guess. And what they go through is, I think way worse than anything that we could. But whether it's bullying, harassment, I think everybody kind of deals with that kind of stuff in the workplace, and it's not okay. Like it needs to change. And I think Brandy's doing a good job of bringing that to light.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like she said, it could be other women that are going through it, but she's also had men that have come to her. And like I said, even me, I had messages that they post online, they get bullied, or it happens in the workplace, and it's just, like I said, it's not okay, but it's okay to talk about it.
Yeah, and that was the whole thing. One of my things with that was like, I know she's coming at it from like her angle with being a woman in the trade. I mean, she's been doing it for 18 years now, as she said. And, I've had my own experiences where with my last company there, we had some young helpers, and they seemed like they were pretty decent, but because of the way that the I guess I'll say like the senior guys, or like the journeymen, or whatever you want to call them, um, just like we're treating them like that. They were basically doing that kind of like abusive behavior, where it was just like, they're just belittling them, downright like bullying them. And
Hmm.
um, and they ended up leaving to go work for someone else, because they just got fed up with it. And it's a shame. It's like, we're trying to find these young people to kind of take over the generation that's retiring, but at the same time, when they're put in these environments that are toxic, who wants to stick around for that? I mean, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's supposed to make us uncomfortable. That's just it too. It's like, it's, that's just it. We need to talk about it. And I think that's why,
Hmm.
like, I mean, you probably saw, maybe I made like a story, and I basically tagged like at least a lot of the bigger accounts, bigger podcasters out there, just saying like, look, you guys have a bigger voice in this. Like, I'm just one small person in this. I mean, Gary's got a bigger following, of course, but I mean, there's other bigger accounts that have other things. Like, look, we all need to like basically kind of, I think, in some way address it. There was somebody I talked with, Andy Mickelson. Does a podcast with Eric on, who's Mechanical Hub, and he says,
Okay.
like, as part of their union, he's part of the plumbers union out in Montana, and he goes, yeah, we squashed that pretty quickly in the union. So I mean, it kind of depends on where you are. It may even depends on what kind of work environment you are within your company, within a union, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think this is something that totally needs to be addressed because, yeah, these young people might be coming into it, but at the same time, though, they're not sticking around because they're getting, they're just like, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to put up with this kind of abuse, and that's what it is.
I think that's what it is because it's they say the new kids or whatever they're not tough enough, but it's really they just don't want to put up with it. And then like people say that we don't have or we have a shortage of techs, but we need to make sure that we're taking care of them too. I run a business, and a lot of it falls on the business owners as well, making sure that they have a good work environment. That's something that we do or that we take seriously too. Uh, Even though we're super small, like we don't have a fleet or anything, we're just five of us, but we make sure that we check in on everybody, make sure everybody is in a good state of mind. We kind of take all that into consideration. People that are overworked tend to make mistakes, tend to cost you money, and that's not good for anybody. So, we don't like to overwork our techs. Like I said, we check in on them. I'm learning all that from my dad because he's the one that like actually started the business.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he does the hot side, he does cooking equipment and stuff like that. Technically, it's his business, and I'm learning from him how to be with all these guys, like all the techs that he has, checking in on them, calling them, making sure everybody has help when they need it. The strain that we put on our body and mind is pretty great, and not a lot of people think about it, or they think they have to tough it out and just get through the day, which I had one of those days today. It happens, but you got to listen to your body too, and you got to I tell people, take your little breaks if you need them. Take a minute to relax. You're gonna have headaches, you're gonna get overwhelmed at times. You need to listen to your body and kind of be in a good state of mind when you're doing this kind of work. Any little slip up or accident could be dangerous too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of it, I think I was talking with someone else, and this is another one of the episodes in some way, was Scott Klein, who's HVACer. He lives not too far from me. He's about an hour north. I live in Harrisburg area in Pennsylvania here, and he's up a little bit north. But we're talking about the fact that, in some ways you have to put limits, or at least realize what your limits are, and also like put up boundaries, because in this field, in this trade, in any trade, really, in these, like in the service industry, whether it's like yourself working primarily like in the food sector, or even for me working in, say, like I might have to deal with like some processed chillers or whatever, there's got to become a point where you're just like, look, like, I've hit my limit. Like I can't go any further. Like, I'm kind of like getting to the end of my rope. I need to just kind of like take a step back and take that mental rest or that break, or just basically say, look, I'm tapped out. I can't do any more today. You're going to have to like wait until tomorrow or something like that. I mean, and I've had a situation like that where someone didn't have heat. And I was doing this major repair. And then it came down to it. There was like a small thing. It was a geothermal system. And it turned out like I got done repairing, like it was like an indoor coil, got done with everything. But then it turned out that the water valve wasn't working properly. And that wasn't part of the quote. And this guy had been without heat, I know, for at least a week. And then he tried to kind of like guilt trip me and say, well, can't you just fix it? Couldn't you just stay an extra hour? I'll pay you cash, this, that. And
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, this was not part of my quote. Like, someone will come back tomorrow and take care of it. But, this is, I've reached the end of my allotted time, essentially. And I felt bad, but at the same time, it's just like, yeah, okay, you might not be having heat but you've been dealing with this for at least a week. Meanwhile, like I've got my family at home that's waiting for me to get there, and that's just it, so that's where I kind of put that my boundary up for myself. And I even called someone. I said, am I in the wrong here? Or did I do the right thing? And the guy was like, nope, you did the exact right thing. Like, you got to have like those boundaries where it's just like, look, again, I'm a human being. I have my limits. And that was like, nope, that was the boundary. And I didn't want to cross it.
Limits are important because, like I said, you won't be thinking clearly. You won't be you'll be making mistakes, and it's going to end up costing you. It's happened to me plenty of times where I try to work through like a situation like yours, like where I'm really trying to get, the unit or whatever I'm working on back online, and then something else happens, or, something goes wrong. And it's like, you know what? If it's like the end of the day, or if it's like into the night and I've been working all day, I'm sorry, but I'll be back tomorrow, or somebody will be back in the morning, and we'll get it going. Or if it's something, because I deal with a lot of refrigeration. So if it's an emergency, I'll just have somebody take over for me or something. Like, we figure something out at work,
Mm-hmm.
to where we can do that, because I've learned the hard way that once you start getting burnt out, it's never a good thing. And I'll probably make it worse than actually like fixing it. Or I'll go home like, um, not in the right state of mind. And sometimes I have to drive a long way home. Like, there's different scenarios. And like Jennifer says here, work and life balance is important. You got a family to go home to, and you got, kids and different things that matter more to you than, sticking around trying to get all this extra work in. So I think balance is a good thing to remember. It's a work balance, a life balance, and then it always goes back to the state of mind that you're in, mental health, that type of stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And and then to answer one of the questions I saw over here from 101 HVAC 101. I actually, for my addiction, speaking of like that mental health thing, for that with that addiction, I actually did end up going to therapy. I actually found a therapist. It was just that, I had reached a point where it's like playing video games, specifically mobile games,
Hmm.
was just it was just too much. It was too much. Like I get sucked into these, these freemium games, and then I'd start playing them, and I thought I could overcome it. And it got to a point where my wife was about ready to kick me out of the house. And and that's no secret. I mean, that's like my very first episode is basically saying, here's why I did this, and here's what my own journey in mental health. And so that's been about it's been close to a year now. I mean, I'm not like saying I'm sober, but it's more like I've just kind of realized like I can't play games. Like I just can't play like if there's any kind of game, I can't download it onto a phone. If I'm playing
Hmm.
games, it's with my kids playing a board game. I've got some board games that are right above this little cabinet above my head here, and that sort of thing. Um, and so that's, for me, that there again is just like kind of like I need to, when I get home, it's almost like I tried to turn off, like not turn myself off, but like, detach myself from any kind of like screens or whatever. So that way I can be more present with my family and everything else. So yeah, that was what I ended up doing, was actually went to a therapist for about, it was like about 3 months, that I was, doing it online. And that's the other thing too, that's so great, with, with this technology, and even kind of with COVID too, is like, it's not very difficult to find a therapist if you feel like you need that, because you can do
Hmm.
these things online. Like there was a therapist I found that was like an hour away. Was I driving an hour, basically, and 2 hours round trip to this guy's physical office? Oh no. I mean, I was doing basically what you and I are doing right now, online, webcams, microphones, what have you, the whole nine. So it was like it was like I was there, but I wasn't physically there. And so that was it. That where I just kind of reached, for me, was like I reached kind of like a low point, and it was just like, what, I can't fix me. I need someone else
Hmm.
to kind of come in to help me. Like I don't. It's almost like, I think Ben and I talked about this, but it's almost like, you go to a job and you don't have the right tools. You're trying to fix something, you think you can fix it, but you don't have the right equipment, you don't have the right tools, and you need to call someone in and say, hey, I need some tools. I need these tools to help me out, and they're the ones that kind of provide you that sort of those tools to at least allow you to fix the problem, to kind of, I mean, make an analogy within our field. And
Hmm.
so that for me is what really helped, to help kind of ground me. And then, for me daily, I've said this to Gil, to Gil on Gil's show as well. Is like, for me, my faith is very important, and that's what kind of keeps me grounded as well. Is like having a daily routine of prayers, some kind of spiritual reading, that sort of thing. Those things are what keep me grounded, and just kind of keep me kind of in that sense out on that straight and narrow, not trying to veer off of that path, because otherwise it'll be a bad thing. And it's just, and I've been there, and I don't want to go back.
Exactly. And I know I've heard your podcast talk about it. I've heard Ben when he talks about these kind of things on his, where it's like it's okay to reach out for help, whether it's therapy, even whether it's mental or physical, because he's talked about going to like a chiropractor and things like that to get his body right, and then about going to therapy to get your mind right. And it's it's not one or the other, it's always both. You got to make sure your mind is right, your body's right. um you got to look out for yourself. And I've been trying to do the same thing too. It's like, you have a balance of life and work. I used to just work all the time. I used to work nights, weekends, and I love what I do, so I didn't mind it. But I got buried in it too. And I've seen some people in the chat talk about trying to separate work, uh, or turn it off, like when you get out of work. And it's very hard for a lot of us that do this. You go home and you start thinking about the call that you did, or other stuff from work, and it's hard to turn it off. But I think once you figure that out, or you can get some separation there, that helps a lot too. Um, and even me, like I said, we run a business. It's kind of hard to turn it off, but I've kind of figured out how I can mentally just block it out a little bit, enjoy time with my family, um, and just not be about work like 24/7.
Hmm. Well, and that for me is one reason why I don't think I'll ever, personally, I don't think I'll ever start my own business, just because I know that that's not really one, like, I'm not that person. I'm not that kind of driven person to do that. And also, like, that's a lot of work. I mean, I mean, I've heard from other business owners or whatever that it is a lot of work. Like, you work, twice as much trying to run your own business as you do just working for someone else. And so for me at this point, that's where it's just like, I would, I appreciate being able to basically, when the job is done for the day, I'm driving home and it's done. Like, my day's done. That
Yeah.
drive home, my day's done. I can just, that's like my time to almost kind of, in a sense, like unwind and just kind of almost like mentally prepare that, hey, I'm going home, going to see the kids, going to give them hugs, going to get, see the wife, and do stuff around the house with them, and do like almost like that, and then have like my, essentially like my evening routine with them to, to
Hmm.
focus on them solely, So, yeah, again, that's again is in a sense for me realizing like my own in a limit, that I already realized for myself, where it's just like, yeah, I'm not in a good place if I were to try and do that. I mean, I've had that inkling every now and then, but my wife would just be like, "No, you're not that person." And I'm like, "You're right, I'm not."
uh, and and I never understood that when I was younger, because I went to essentially my college offered HVAC. So I went to a college close by, and I noticed that like half of the teachers owned a business and the other half didn't. And they were very adamant that they never wanted to. They were okay with just working for somebody. And they told us, that there'll be some of you that want to run a business and some of you that don't. And I just didn't understand that at first. I'm like, why wouldn't you want to run your own business? I always thought that was the end game, right? Now I get it more. It's very, awesome when I hear people say that they turn it off, they leave it at work, they clock out, this and that. And then on my end, like I said, my dad started the business. So when I started, I had that mentality as well. It took me a long time to want to run a business, to have that urge, fire, whatever you want to call it, to actually help. Um, Now I'm very good with like computers and stuff, so I helped him, do business cards and advertisement type of stuff, and help him get
Hmm.
off the ground. But I was like, I'll go to work, I'll go help, and I couldn't wait to get out. I was always thinking about what I was going to do later, and I wanted my weekends to myself, and I had that mentality when I started. Like I said, it took me a few years to get into the whole business side and actually want to do that. And like with anything, whether you're working for somebody or you're running a business, it's very stressful when you start, I think, regardless, right? If you're working for somebody, I had this talk with somebody recently. You're putting in the hours and you're hustling, and like I said, it goes hand in hand also with running a business. You got to hustle. You got to, pay your dues, so to speak. And like if you're working for somebody, then once you get that seniority or whatever you want to call it, you might have helpers, or you might have your own schedule. You might be favored on the schedule, stuff like that. And then once you run a business, if you're running a business, it's the same thing. You got to hustle. You want to get all your accounts lined up. You're going to figure out and make a lot of mistakes when you start your business. And like where we are right now, I'm very comfortable where I can separate work and home. I'm not working as much as I used to, and I'm fine with that. I, I, the time that I have with my family is more important to me at this point. So that's the whole thing, stressful when you start. That's what I always tell people. It's not all like sunshine, rainbow, everything, it's a very tough trade to get into, but I love what we do, and I love HVAC. So I wouldn't be doing anything else, but there is other things that come with it. So that's why I wanted to have this podcast with you and talk about, some of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, I started in this field late. Like, I mean, I was, um, I was in my goodness, late 20s when I started working in this field. I mean, I have a college degree, worked odd jobs, and then ended up going back to school for this because my wife and I sat down one night and realized, we were looking at our budget and we're like, look, we're not going to be able to make ends meet if something doesn't change. And for me, it was like, well, I needed to do something because I was just working just these random odd jobs, like maintenance jobs, whatever. And so that's when I went back to school it was a year-long program at a local kind of like a trade school, like career institute kind of thing. I mean, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a stressful year. Like it was not an easy year for my family. I mean, it was I had one kid and we were pregnant with my second, and that was a stressful year. But at the same time, though, it was more like, if I don't do it now, there's never a good time, but this is going to be the best time to do it because we only have, one now, and then it'll be, two toward the end. But yeah, it was not an easy year, but I mean, obviously now the way I've progressed in this field it's been great. And a lot of it is like, taking that time to like learn, like to listen to podcasts, like, maybe like yourself or, like Brian or from HVA school, like to listen to these things and to better yourself and just kind of keep yourself going. Cause I got to a point, before I left for train where my boss was my old boss. He would be, if there was a problem at his house or at his parents' house, and his dad was the one that started the company that he was running. If there was a problem at any one of their houses, he was having me go out there. And that's, I mean, to me, that's like, okay, if I'm being sent to the boss's house, I must be doing something right.
Yeah.
And even earlier before that, like he would be sending me to like his mother-in-law's house. I'm thinking, okay, well, you're sending me to your mother-in-law's house. You must, I mean, obviously, you like your wife very much, and you must like your mother-in-law well enough to at least be sending someone that's at least half decent. So that I got to that point too, where it's just like I became, had like that seniority in some way, not as, but just because of, I was just a smart person, and I still consider
Mm-hmm.
myself a smart person that just keeps learning. And it's just, and being reliable. I mean, that's just it. You have to have those character qualities of like, being, not necessarily driven, but at least being like, you're on time, you put in the work, you're showing that
Yeah.
that you're continuing to like push yourself into learning. You're not just kind of keeping yourself on like a plateau. And for me, in a sense, that was kind of one of the reasons why when I had this opportunity to work for Train, that was one of the reasons I left, was because it was, there were other things, other benefits behind it. But for me, it was just like, I mean, I felt like I kind of hit like that plateau, and I wanted to kind of step up my game in a sense and be like, all right, let's see what else is out there. And now it's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
now I'm working with chillers, and now I'm working with, larger pieces of equipment, stuff that I've never seen before. I mean, I've heard of these things, but now it's a whole new realm out there now.
Yeah, and I think like I've had other guys like on the podcast. Like I started having guests on, and a lot of us end up talking about how a lot of techs probably have ADD, ADHD, or whatever you want to call it, and we can't sit still. We can't be, anywhere too long. And like you said, you went on to bigger things. You're doing chillers and stuff like that. personally, I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing as far as I like doing refrigeration more than I do like AC work. So I love, getting into the new equipment. We're starting to see a lot of digital stuff down here because we had a lot of older mechanical stuff still. And that's always the cool thing about the trade is it's always challenging. It's very rewarding. That you don't always see the same thing. You get to see new things every day. You get to travel. So that's something that's come up a lot when I've talked to other techs is like we have a problem. We can't sit still. We can't be behind a desk or anything like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's one of the things I love about this too. And I'm actually going to be doing a presentation to some high school students here at the end of this month. And I guess they've had some other presentations. It's a specific group at the church I go to, but my thing that I want to kind of hit on with them, at least with in a sense, is obviously like the same kind of talking points, which is like it's a very rewarding career. We get to travel and everything else. And for me too, it's almost like being in a trade allows you to learn these applicable skills that you can take wherever you go. Like it doesn't matter what you do. Like, I mean, everyone needs to have like their toilets, the toilets flushing properly. Like if you got a clog, well, and you don't know how to use a toilet or an auger, well then, oh my gosh, then you need to call a plumber. And right there's like, $200-$300 just for something simple that you could, if you knew how to work either a plunger properly or using a toilet auger, then you could do something. Or your light fixture kind of goes on the fritz and you need to fix it. I mean, or replace it. Well, instead of calling an electrician, you could just do it yourself. I mean, that's the thing. It's that I love about this field too. It's just like these skills that you kind of learn. Yeah, it's not just, when us as we're doing like, you're doing refrigeration and I'm just doing like comfort cooling or process chillers. It's like, well, no, but we're doing electrical. We know how to do some plumbing. We kind of get tapped into all these different areas. I mean, I know that's why Ben makes that little joke, semi-serious joke that we're the king of the trades, because we kind of do a lot of it. We kind of get into all that stuff, but still have our own little niche thing here.
Yeah, and I never thought about it like when I started, and it's true. You do a little bit of plumbing, you do a little electrical here and there, and I think a lot of us want to be like the DIY guys around the house. I like to work on stuff around the house. I work on my car. I used to fix electronics. I just recently fixed, my kid's iPad. I like to take things apart and work on stuff in general. So I think that's probably why I like being in HVAC so much. It's like, it's mostly refrigeration and that's what I love to do, but you're going to see so many things. You got to deal with drains, different aspects of that, and electrical disconnects. If it's an issue with the AC or whatever is connected to it or related to it, you got to work on it too.
For sure.
Yeah. Let me see. So like today, like you said, you had a whole video game addiction. I don't think I've had anything that severe myself. I know Gil and other guys have talked about addiction too. The only issue that I have that I've always had is I don't like to be around too many people. So I don't know if this is like an introvert thing or something, but I started freaking out a little bit. So today we had a change out where we had to kind of subcontract or work with some other guys because we had an issue with the curb and different things, and the unit they wanted to put in didn't fit, and we had a whole day there. So there was a whole bunch of people there. They had like 4 or 5 guys out there that were doing the crane, the curb. They were kind of taking care of all that, and we were the ones that were going to start it up, hook it up, all that kind of stuff. It was a train unit, and we were there, and they were great. They wanted to help. They were helping us put it in, all that good stuff. I had to take a minute because and then everybody was handling my tools. That got on my nerves a little bit too. And I don't know. It reminded me that I don't like to be around people too much, in big crowds. So that's kind of something that I've had to deal with. And like I said, I've been an introvert, since I was, younger. So when I got into the trade, I didn't mind being on rooftops alone. That's probably another reason why I like doing HVAC. Being on the roof alone, I didn't mind dealing with customers too much, but I had to learn and kind of, get out of that. And I learned it from my dad. My dad can be best friends with anybody, and be more of a people's person and stuff like that. But today I had to take a minute. Like I said, there was like way too many people on the roof. I took a break. I have kind of figured out how to calm down. I think you just got to figure out what yours is. I like to take little breaks here and there if I need it. If you need to go out to the van and do a little yelling, by yourself, it's all good. Nobody's going to judge you.
Mm-hmm.
There's just different things that you can stress out about at work. Mine was kind of like, I guess it's kind of a minor thing. It's just an issue that I have. But like, if you're feeling pressured at work, if you have responsibilities at work, if they're pushing you, like just fix it. I've heard those stories too. When they're out at a call and they can't, maybe they're not trained well enough, and their boss is just like, fix it, this and that. Um, Giving them like a ridiculous amount of calls to do in a day. Take a minute to breathe. Everybody goes through stress at work. It's a common thing. If you need to go talk to somebody about it, that's fine. If you need to go yell in your van, it's fine too. It's however you want to deal with it.
For sure. And I had to kind of chuckle because I mean, if people were handling my tools, maybe without my permission or whatever, that would drive me nuts too. Where it's like, what? Why? Because next thing you know, they're going to walk away or something like that. So I mean, I can get that. I mean, and I'm an introvert as well. But for me, I've kind of learned to. I've always dealt well with people though. I've always had like good relational skills in that sense. I'm not sure that's just like a kind of like a gift I have because I had working in residential field, there are customers. That would specifically ask for me, or they even if I was like tied up because I had some other work to be done, well they'd be like, nope, we'll wait till Matt can get out to here to take a look at our to do our routine check or whatever, because they're like I had that trust with them. And actually there's one of my normal residential customers, I even like I did have to text her and say, hey, by the way, I'm going to be leaving for a train, and she was like, oh, are you kidding me? And there's a whole long story with that, but she was, she was a little distraught about that fact. Like she was losing me in a sense because, now she's got to have someone else from the company I was working for to come out and do it. I mean, and she, and I gave her recommendations of who she should ask for next, but you kind of build those, you do build those relationships and kind of build that rapport with people. And I've always kind of had that little bit of a knack for it in a sense. But yeah, if there's too many people in like one room, I'm just like, nope. I'll be standing by the wall over here or by the bar or whatever. Like I'll be a wallflower for sure. Yeah, no, unless there's someone I know. Yeah, I'm just like, no, I'm out.
I guess I'm not the only one. And then there's people in the chat too. Steve, I don't do well with people either. Where's this other one? I prefer working alone. When I have to work at a plant or a busy job site, it's the worst. I don't know. Some people just like the whole rooftop aspect, which myself included,
Mm-hmm.
where you're alone and you can just think. You have a clear mind when you're up there by yourself. I think that's the best way, for me too.
Oh yeah, I love that too. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing the other thing I've been doing is there's this what do I want to say? It's a grow facility that I've been dealing with a lot of startups out, and so that's kind of nice because there might be a lot of activity going on but directly beneath me, like with electricians or whomever else. But I'm up on the roof with just the HVAC equipment, and there's maybe a half dozen people on this sprawling roof, and it's like, this is nice, this is fine. I can just kind of do my own thing. I'm up here to do the startups, and it's like, well, what's going on down below? Well, we don't know, but we're just here to do the commissioning aspect, like ductwork and everything else. There's a subcontractor that's dealing with that. We're just worrying about getting our equipment started up properly.
Yeah, and I've learned that aspect of it from my dad, as far as like building relationships with the people that you see all the time. Commercial work, it's like managers, area managers. We don't really see the owners too much, but I've had to get over that and get into more like people skills, I guess. And it's a learning process. You got to be no matter what you do in this trade, you're going to be uncomfortable at times, and it's you working on it, building yourself as a tech and a person. And if it's not for you, if it's really not for you, there's so many different avenues you can take in the trade. So if you don't like dealing with people, maybe you want to do commercial, be on a roof. If you do like dealing with people, because I've had some guys that do residential strictly on the podcast, and that's what their favorite part of it is, talking to homeowners all the time, their regulars, and having those like friendships there, relationships. And they wouldn't, or they said they would go crazy if they were on a rooftop alone all the time. So everybody's different, and that's why also when I was thinking about this podcast, I was like, I don't know if we have the same perspective on things, but I've been learning from talking to different guys that some people like it this way, some people like this part of the trade, some people want to have somebody to talk to all the time, some people don't. They rather be alone, like I said, on a rooftop or in the van alone, where they don't have to talk to people. Everybody's different.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess I would say I would definitely prefer like just being alone, because then it's like I can listen to, I like if I'm on the drive, I can listen to listen to whatever I want to listen to, just be in my own headspace, whatever, and that it's kind of funny because especially now with being here at Train, everyone has their own vehicle. Like there is no like riding along with somebody else. It's like it's like there's two of you guys going to this job site, you're both rolling up in your trucks. It's just the way it works because everyone has their own setups or whatever, so it's just easier, and that's just how they operate. So there's a lot of things I'm learning as well but it is definitely interesting to see different personalities, like different aspects of the field, or even like say everyone has their quirks. I mean, we all have our quirks. Here's my theory of life. Just quick, my theory of life is there is no one that is totally normal. Everyone is weird in their own way. I'm just putting it out there now. We're all weird. All right. So it's just a matter of what is your weirdness and what is your quirkiness, and just accept it and just roll with it. Because if we were all normal, then this would be a very boring world.
Yeah, I was going to say it would be very boring. HVAC teacher, I personally love doing residential and light commercial, talking with customers and being alone on the roof, jamming to music. That kind of sounds like me right there too. That if I do kitchen refrigeration, so depending on the day, like yesterday, I was in a lot of kitchens working on a lot of small coolers and stuff. So I deal with like the cooks and the people in the kitchen. So that's where I get my interactions. And then like another day I could be on the roof all day. Like I was doing maintenance last week, all week. I was alone. I had headphones on, just doing my thing, getting through the day. And then like he said, jamming to music is like, if I have a lot of long drives. So I either have some good music playing or a podcast going, and I would rather be by myself where I can just crank it up and just like enjoy my drive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean normally I like to see what's going on, hear what's going on, but today, for example, like I was punching chiller tubes, and that's very monotonous. I mean, for anyone that might know or has ever done it, it is a very monotonous, tedious thing. And so I have like some wireless earbuds, and I just pop those in and I'm listening to music, because I was like, you know what, this is going to be dry and boring anyway. I might as well at least make it somewhat more interesting by at least having some good tunes in my ears while I'm cleaning these chiller tubes here.
Yeah. HVAC 101, uncomfortable equals growth. I highly agree.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, if you're not in an uncomfortable spot or put in uncomfortable situations, then you're not going to learn, and it's not going to stretch you. That's just it. I mean, it's good to know your limits, but in some ways though, it's nice to kind of stretch those out a little bit and say, is this a learning experience, or is this a place where I can grow as a person, or is this like again, that like those boundaries, like, is this a hard limit where it's like I really shouldn't cross it, or is this something where it's like, well, no, this is going to be something that could be good for me. And I mean, I've been in plenty of those situations too, where it's almost like, well, I've not ever, I never say the words to an actual person where it's like, well, I've never seen this before, but it's more like, well, I always, always say, well, I'll take a look and see what I can figure out. And then it's like, all right, I'm going online, looking up some manuals, trying to figure out what I can. And if I can't figure it out, then then I'm on the phone with someone else saying, hey, here's what I'm looking at. Can you, give me a hand with it? Can you give me a hand with this? So, I mean, that's just it. It's, I always prefer to do my own research, to try and figure out what a problem was before I would even call like tech support or another coworker, because like I'd rather just try, if I can learn it myself, then it sticks better with me if I learn and do it myself versus just someone just kind of giving me the answer.
Yeah, I had to deal with that a lot. I mean, I still do, right? Every time something new comes out, you're not going to know, what's going on if it goes down. That's what manuals are for. I do the same thing. I've always done that, where I try to look up the manual on my phone, read as much as I can on it, even if I have to go out to the van to do it, and then go and try and tackle it. But when I started, everything was new to me. I didn't know what to do a lot of the times, and a lot of times I was alone. I was the type of person who did not like calling other people or technical support. So a lot of times I try to, challenge myself, but I had to get over that. I don't know if it was a pride thing or what, but I just did not want to call tech support, or even I had some guys' numbers when I started to, and I was like, you know what, if it's not a bad thing. If I don't know it, I need to reach out to somebody who can help me, because worse, it's going to be worse if I just don't fix the thing. So let me, get the help that I need.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. And there are certain times where, certain like different pieces of equipment where it's almost like if I can't say like I'll just, throw an example, like a ductless system, depending on what the manufacturer is, some of them at least have like some kind of like troubleshooting guides or whatever. And sometimes you can get what you can, use like a flow chart or some sort and say, okay, well, here's what I've eliminated. Well, then it's like, well, okay, I've eliminated this possibility, but then this is what they've given me, but I still haven't found the problem. Then I'm calling their tech support and saying, what's going on? And then sometimes it's like, oh, you need to check this thing on the board or whatever. And then it's like, oh, well, okay. So troubleshooting guide. I mean, that's the thing. Sometimes these manufacturers, I think they just kind of like to have their own little secrets and say, oh no, we're not going to give you this little nugget that you should know, but you need to call us for that. And I find that a little irritating at times, but sometimes I have some tech support though, and that's always fun, because then it's like, oh, you don't even know what the problem is. Oh, that's good. I don't feel so bad.
Yeah. I've had good and bad luck with tech support. Have you tried that Blue On one?
I did once. And I always forgot about them most of the time, because I wouldn't necessarily need tech support that madly. But typically whenever I would call tech support, whenever I was calling tech support, it was typically for Fujitsu, actually, or just ductless systems is what I'll just say, because it's all computerized, it's all board. So if you're not looking for the right input and output on the thing, well, then you don't know. You could be chasing your tail, because there's all sorts of connection points on those things, and I had one where it was a train ductless unit, and then I was on the phone with the guy, and he was like, and I was like, oh, this reading just spiked up. He goes, that's weird. And he goes, check your compressor. And sure enough, the compressor is grounded. But the time I was there before, the guy I was talking to didn't even tell me that. And I always and sometimes it can be easy to almost overlook those simple things. You're thinking, okay, this is a ductless unit. It's got this board. There's probably something wrong with the board or whatever. And next thing you know, it's like, oh no, you have a grounded compressor. But it's because of the way those inverters work. They don't trip a break or anything. They just kind of try to ramp up, and then they're like, nope, I'm out.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't tried Blue On myself, but I've heard good things, I guess. And somebody told me that you need credits or something to actually get tech support. I don't know how that works.
I don't know how that works either. I mean, I did try it one time, but that was a weird situation. This is an oddball situation that I had. It was a couple years ago. I had replaced the ignition board in this old, what was it? It was an old Ream. I think it was an old Ream furnace, like from like the 90s or early 2000s. Replaced the board, and I'd done it in air conditioning season. And then when I went to run it in heating, it didn't work. Like nothing was working. Well, here, what happened when I called the tech support, and they're like, "Oh, well, we're not sure." Well, here, what happened was the supplier sold me a board, but they failed to tell me that, oh, by the way, there's like this adapter kit that you need for the flame sensor so that it's grounded properly, because the old way that they were doing it was like through the neutral, and it was this weird thing. And then I was like, oh, so the supplier didn't give me all the stuff I needed to fully retrofit this new board for the furnace. And that was just a frustrating situation. That's the only time I've ever called Blue on, honestly. I always forget about them until like I get like some text or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, and I'm going, oh yeah, you guys do exist. Shoot.
Yeah, I saw them on Gil's show, and they're partnering with some CRM software, so they're really branching out there. I don't think I've dealt with their tech support at all yet, so maybe soon. I think when I did look, they didn't have the equipment that I was seeing, so I kind of just like stopped looking. But I think they've added a lot of stuff, so I mean, maybe later down the line I'll check them out. But let's see. Ryan, I like when I can understand the tech support person. Sometimes I simply cannot understand. Yeah, I get frustrated too. Like I'll be like, yeah, thank you, bye. Like if we're not getting anywhere, if they're not making any sense, like I try to be as clear as I can when I do call tech support. And I'll admit, when I was a rookie or when I started, I was never prepared. I kind of learned that quickly. You got to have all your readings, your everything down to a T, so that they know what's working and what's not working. And after I got my shit together, and then I was prepared, I would get annoyed when they weren't, or I don't know, if I didn't understand them, if they weren't making any sense, I'm like, thank you for your time, I'll figure it out myself.
Yeah, for sure. A frustrating story I have with tech support was here's what I learned, just as like the too long version is, don't be trying to call tech support the week between Christmas and New Year's. Because everyone's taking a vacation and it just tanks. Because I tried calling Mitsubishi tech support, this is like 5 years ago, probably more than that, but anyway, it was a pain in the butt, because like I'd call them and then like be put in the queue, and then they'd be calling me back like 5-6 hours later, and it was just terrible. Yeah, it was just awful. It was such a frustrating thing, because then they're like, well, are you on site? I'm like, no, like I'm not going to sit around this site and have this customer pay for me to sit around 5-6 hours and wait for you to call. Like, no. So yeah, I mean that there again, I mean, that's where it's like, I mean, I know like that's the thing with Blue On that they say is like, oh, someone will answer the phone within 2 minutes. Like I said, I've only ever done that once. But yeah, it is a frustrating thing when you're trying to figure out something like that, and then it's like, oh, well, all right.
I've had those where it's like we're getting nowhere. I'll just, I'm better off doing it myself. I'll sit here another hour and figure it out. Yeah, like, and that's probably another reason I wish Blue On was around when I started. I think I needed it more back then than I do now. I think now I have a pretty good grasp of things, and if like I do more walk-ins and stuff, so I had that whole IntelliGen by Heatcraft, and we put a few of those in, and they've been great for the most part. But I had one that would either have the electronic expansion valve all the way closed or all the way open, and never regulated it. I don't know what the problem was. They never gave me a straight answer, but I was like, well, whatever. They sent me the valve itself and the board as a precautionary, I guess. I replaced the valve because that's what they told me was wrong with it after I gave them my readings and stuff. Still didn't work. Completely shut. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to replace the board on a whim, right? Replace the board, and it worked. And it's been working ever since. And I'm like, they never told me why or how to check it. So I'm like, okay, like that was probably the hardest or the most frustrating call that I've had recently. And I try to go through their tech support or whoever at Heatcraft, was what I was talking to, and they didn't even have an answer, and they thought it was a valve. I was like, let me just replace a board because I don't know what else it could be. That kicked it on. It's been regulating. It keeps the superheat great. I don't know, the digital stuff you got to be careful with a little bit.
Oh yeah, and especially now with COVID, I think with quality control, like I was just saying, it's kind of at the top of this. Was talking about quality control stuff. It's just like, sometimes this stuff that's getting put out there is not the greatest because they're just trying to get, some of these manufacturers are so desperate to try and get stuff out that they're almost like, I swear they're like cutting some corners here and there to get their stuff out, and then they're missing things, and then then you have like a problem like you were saying. You got to have had a faulty board, obviously that wasn't telling the expansion valve to open and close properly, or to kind of like regulate itself to kind of keep that superheat where it needed to be. And so yeah, it's it's like, and I'm seeing, like I said, I've seen that too, where example of one of the very first startups I did for Train was it's like there were a couple wires on a VFD that weren't even in the terminals, like the terminals weren't even tightened down, like stuff like that, or the insulation inside the panel had fallen down, so we had to take the panel off the top, peel the kind of pull it back a little bit. We have had like take some spray adhesive, spray it down, spray everything back down, and basically like re-glue it to basically get it back to where it needed to be. But the fortunate thing for me anyway, with working for Train, is like I can put in alerts to the factory and say, hey factory, you screwed up. Here's how you should, here's what you need to do, and then say, here's what I suggest you do to kind of fix this. And another thing we happened was, like, we just were working on a unit, and one of the AC circuits was flat, like there was no charge in it. And we found the leak. It was just it was a poorly brazed joint going onto one of the headers, and it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, it might have held pressure, but my suggestive action was, hey, by the way, you guys in the factory, use a micron gauge. You would have found this out. You would have found out that there was something not right if you'd been using a micron gauge, because I can know full well they're not. But that's just because they're just, they have a process where it's just like, put it on the pump for X amount of time and then take it off and charge it up and carry on, move on to the next thing. So yeah, it's funny, to see the stuff that, I basically can say, it's like people complain about things that might be wrong with the unit. It's like, well, yeah, but I can actually say something about it to the factory directly and say, hey, get your act together. Maybe whether they listen or not is another story, but I can at least say I did my part.
Like we had to put in, like, most of our customers buy their own equipment, so we deal with a vast range. We deal with Daikin, Train, I guess not so much Carrier too much like recently, but I've had that issue with the Daikin, whatever you call them, where the insulation just, or like as soon as we put it in, the insulation's already come off on the panel, so we have to put it back ourselves as well. And I already know if we put in a new one, like we put one in a few months ago, I was like, let me look at the panels. Sure enough, the insulation was already coming off. So we learned those things. And then recently we put in an ice machine, and then one of our guys I was helping. One of our guys was putting it in. Self-contained unit, should have been in and out, and he was having issues where it wouldn't drop ice. So I was like, okay, let me check it. And I'm like, I'm reading, I'm checking the temperature of the water, seeing if it's even getting cold. And then I'm like, you know what, let's check pressures. Let's check, some things that we shouldn't have to on a new unit. And I'm like, dude, you're low on charge. And he's like, are you sure? And I'm like, it's not much, but you're low on charge. Sure enough, he had to add charge, and it dropped instantly, made ice perfect. So I was like, we have a leak. We couldn't get to it that day, but it's brand new, and it had a leak in the condenser. I found it shortly after, patched it up. I did my job, but some of the stuff coming out is not up to standards, I guess.
No, definitely not. I mean, I know, I think it was, I think, it was kind of like Mitsubishi. It was Mitsubishi. I know that they said, we're even though like everything kind of came to a halt with COVID and everything, I think they were one of the manufacturers that said, we're not stopping what we're doing, because we're going to keep our quality control the same as it has been, because if we don't, then we're going to have problems, and then we're going to have a crap ton of warranty calls, and no one wants
Yep.
that. And I was like, good on you. Like, yeah, it stinks that, people might have to wait, if they're like one of those diamond dealers or whatever, that
Oh
they might
yeah.
have to wait for equipment order. But at the same time, it's like, yes, but then you can at least have that confidence in saying this equipment still is meeting their quality control standards. I have confidence when I'm putting this piece of equipment in that it doesn't have some kind of defect with it.
It happens. Yeah. So I don't know. How do you handle your stress at work, or do you even get stressed at your current job? I feel
Really?
like
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've been very fortunate, with where I was before and where I am now, where it was very low stress. I mean, yeah, there were times when, like where I was before with this, this residential like commercial company, where like we'd had like a heat wave come through, and then, we got swamped with a bunch of calls or whatever. But for me, it was more like, I think I said this, maybe I forget who I said this to, but for me, my focus has always been just like, look, I'm focusing on this call right now. Like, I'm not worrying about whatever is going on at the office. It's like, look, I need to worry about this call right now. Once I get done with this call, then I will move on to the next thing. And so that's, that for me is like kind of like, in a sense, how I dealt with necessary stress. But I mean, again, like you, I love this field. I enjoy it greatly. So for me, it's just like, oh, there's work to be had. Oh, that's no big deal. The stress on that front was more is more with was more for my is more for my wife and family, just because like she stays with the kids. She stays in homeschools the kids and is a stay-at-home mom basically. And so for her, it's like, that's the stress is more on her end than my end. Just because if I'm not there to help her, like to kind of like give her that reprieve, it's, then that's a stressor on her. But generally though, yeah, it's been a very relaxed atmosphere. I even went in today to say something about like, oh, there were these parts that were supposed to have been picked up for a job, but I ended up using these parts for the job that, that I went to pick up, and then we're going to need some other parts or whatever. And the dispatcher was just like, it's fine. We have extra things here. We don't get worked up over stupid shit here. I'm just like, this is a welcome reprieve. Like something, because if I went to the other places where it's like, the parts weren't there or something like that, it's, sometimes people can get into a frenzy and they're like, oh my gosh, well, we need to figure out what happened. And, and this is just like, they're just like,
yeah.
yeah, it ain't no thing. I'm like, dang, this is nice. I like this.
Yeah, so like that's what I was saying. These businesses have to have that work environment, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you can't put too much pressure on your techs. You can't overwork them. You can't expect all this to fall on the tech. If something's not working out, if something's not right, there's always the next day, or you send somebody else. There's no need to get worked up over a call here and there. So that's good. Good work environments, I think, go a long way. There's guys that I've seen on Instagram that run a business, and they have, great work environments. They have like cookouts. They have little, what do you call it? Work parties. They
Mm-hmm.
incentivize the techs for good work, low callbacks, stuff like that. And that's always great. Because if you're in a high stress level environment, I mean, that does no good to anybody. And like you're gonna run your techs out of the company basically.
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely. And I mean, like I said, I mean, I've heard the same horror stories where it's like, oh my gosh, like, oh, I just got done working, a 12-hour shift, and now I have to go in, and then, I'm working another, say like 16 or whatever. I mean, and the worst that I ever had was, I think it was like a really cold weekend one year, and I ended up having like, I think I had like 20 hours of overtime just because of how the weekend worked out for me. But, at that point, it was that was the worst I've ever had as far as like, crazy overtime or just like having some kind of crazy working hours. For the most part, it's, I mean, I guess, yeah, I guess I've just been fortunate, really fortunate that I've been in a couple of places, at least, where it's just been like, yeah, it is what it is. The calls are what they are, that sort of thing. And, I would, put my 8 hours in and carry on and that sort of thing. But I know like another reason that I was looking at going to train or at least somewhere else was just because things were were really slow this past winter, just because around here it was a really mild winter. Didn't get terribly cold. Like we were kind of in the 40s a lot, and that's relatively warm for this area.
Mm-hmm.
And so things were just like had come down to a decent slowdown. So there wasn't like there was work, but it was kind of hit and miss, especially on what I would call on our service side. And so it was there are those times where it's like gets down like that where it was like it kind of gets a little frustrating when it's that slow, when you're just kind of like doing like almost in a sense grunt work. But again, it's kind of nice to in some way to have those slower periods, because then it does give you that time to kind of regroup and to kind of to kind of recharge in a sense. Now I just saw that someone saying, I'll sleep when I die. I mean, that's not the healthy response. Come on.
Yeah. When you first get into the trade, hustle, get all the work you can in, and then figure out how to separate it and make time for your family and kids that you might have. I used to be like that, man. I used to be like, I'm Superman. I can knock all these calls out. I'll work all day, all night. I used to be like that, not get enough sleep. And then you have to realize you can't do that forever. So, take care of yourself, take care of your body, and your work will improve, drastically in my mind.
Absolutely.
Jennifer, I get it. I'm home teaching my kids and others from my community 3 days a week and work the other 4 days, which is easier. Jennifer does a lot. She runs a business with her husband.
Mm-hmm.
She teaches and she does all this other stuff for women in the trade. So she has a full plate over there.
Sounds like it.
Jennifer's phone died. She's still here though. All right, man. We're a little over an hour. I don't want to keep you too long. If you have anything you wanna say, like I said, Matt does have a podcast. If you guys want to go check that out, Trade Therapy. They get a little more in depth over there. He's had some great guys on there talk about the stuff that they go through, and you just had Brandy on with you and Gary, I believe.
Yep.
And I think it's available on yours too, right?
Yeah. So yeah, Gary, we have done a couple episodes with Gary,
Mm-hmm.
and he's kind enough then to share the audio with me, because basically it's almost like a better way to kind of get the message out there, because there might be people that might listen to my podcast that don't listen to his podcast and vice versa. So yeah, he's kind enough to share the audio with me on that front, to kind of to help get that message out there specifically on that, like as far as like this whole abuse thing, like work abuse thing, to kind of get that out there. Yeah, and like I said, the trade therapy thing, it's I put it out there on basically almost any major platform that I could think of. There's if you go on Anchor, it can be found easily, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, that sort of thing. But again, yeah, it's mostly to kind of get stories of tradespeople, like what kind of issues have they dealt with, and to get their stories. And in some ways, like there have been some people that I've reached out to, and they're just not quite ready yet. I mean, and I respect that too. Like there's some people that they're just like, look, where I've seen them where they're like, it's like I can clearly tell they're dealing with something, or they have dealt with something, and they're still dealing with it in some way. And I've said, hey, would you be willing to share your story? They say, I'd love to, but not yet. Like I'm just not in that mental place yet. And I'm like, you know what? That's fine. And that makes it, and for me, it makes it difficult. But at the same time, I have to respect those boundaries where they're just saying, you know what, I'm not ready yet to share the story. And I'm like, you know what, that's cool. Whenever you're ready, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, that's why, like I said, I listened to the show that you had with Brandy, which is very important to get out. For you guys that are listening, that's a whole other beast, because she's dealing with harassment and different things in the workplace as a woman. And I actually did reach out to her too. So I'm glad that she's being open about it, because I think it's, like you said, people need to hear these stories and realize what's going on, because it's not talked about enough. And if we can get it out there, at least to have people talking about it, that's, a great thing that you guys are doing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, man. So I'm gonna probably end this. If you want to take off, that's cool. I'm just gonna do like a little outro with the chat real quick. So I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for your time, and it was a great chat.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Adrian. This is really good. Thank you for having me.
All right, man. I'll
All right.
see you.
Yep. See ya.
All right, guys. That was Matt. Like I said, check out his podcast, Trade Therapy. If you guys want to listen to this on the go, it's also my podcast is also up. It'll be up tomorrow. Um, Appreciate everybody in the chat who came through. Steve, Valentino, Jennifer. I know they said her phone died, but appreciate everybody here. Tech Tie, C Young, all the usuals. Stay safe out there. Listen to your body. Take care of yourself. It's okay. You're going to be stressed. You're going to be frustrated at work. These are all normal things. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Maru, I see you. Mel, Ryan, good stuff. And I'll see you guys. Let me end the show here.